Good morning, good morning, good morning. We're going to practice this again because y'all didn't do it yesterday. Speaking of, I need y'all guys to get this done, all right? This is something that has to be done. Like, if y'all don't pass this algebra star, you're taking it again next year, like for reals. Algebra is one of those things that it's your last math star. They can hold you retaking algebra all the way till your senior year if they have to get y'all passing it. That would not give you the full high school diploma though when you graduate. It would be a slightly diminished one. Today we're going to practice one more time with the domain and range of these quadratic functions when we multiply these two parentheses that are side by side by side. So let's go ahead and do our box method to get our equation in standard form with our negative x plus 2 and our negative x minus 4. Negative x times negative x is positive x squared. Negative x times 2 is 2x, negative 2x, excuse me. Negative x times negative 4 is 4x as a positive. 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. We're going to look at our diagonals here where 4x and minus 2x are going to be with the same terms because they both have just one x. And I can write this equation. Y equals x squared plus 2x minus 8. That's my equation. Okay? From there, I can graph it. Once again, grab your calculators, get it turned on, and let's go ahead and practice graphing it. Because, let's face it, working with a calculator is just as important as being able to do the math. So, open, calculator, B because we're going to be graphing it, and we're going to type in our equation as it was. We don't want this to be a relation because it won't let us graph relations. We're going to have to keep our x squared plus 2x minus 8 as a equation like this, and we're going to graph it. From there, we are going to menu 7, 1 to get ourselves our table, and we can look at this. Notice these numbers as we go this way get bigger. As we work this way, the numbers get smaller. There comes a point where we don't get any smaller anymore, and that's going to be at -1, -9. That's going to be the vertex that we would be looking for over here on the left side. All right? If we actually menu, zoom with a 4, out with a 4, and hit enter, it would show us that there is a spot down here that it doesn't go lower. That's going to be this -1, -9. That is going to be my vertex. So I'm going to jump across to my worksheet, and I'm going to look for where my vertex part is, and I'm going to say that at point -1, -4, that's my vertex. The zeros that I'm looking at here are again going to be where it crosses the x-axis, which is going to be here. -2, 0, or -2, hang on. There we go. It's going to be at -4, 0, and at 2, 0. Those are my zeros. So I come over here, and I go ahead and type in about those zeros, or write in about those zeros. And again, I'm going to use parentheses, where I have -4, 0, and I'm going to have parentheses again, 2, 0. Close those parentheses. Those are my 2 zeros. Is it a maximum or a minimum? Considering the graph is going to be a parabola that goes like this, it is a minimum. I can't write very well today, I apologize. But it is a minimum, so I can type it in instead. No, ain't gonna work. Let's try this one more time. All right, it's not working. I'll just write it. We'll just call it a minimum. Our domain, it does not stop going to the right. It does not stop going to the left. All possible numbers can be plugged into my domain. So I'm going to put all real numbers here. My range, I do have a boundary that this cannot go past, and that is going to be that -4 line right here. Y has to be greater than or equal to that -4. Remember that table where we could be -4? That's a fine table for us to have, a fine value for us to be at. Where things get a little bit crazier is when we have stuff like this, where it goes y equals x minus 1 squared. Okay? This is a little bit more weird simply for the fact that you may not have seen the equation written like this before, but it's still solved the same way. Okay? When I draw my box, what I'm going to have is 2x minus 1s. When I have in parentheses like that, the x minus 1, what it means is I'm taking 2x minus 1s and I am multiplying them together. Anytime I have two parentheses like that next to each other, I have to do the box method. X times x is x squared. -1x is just minus x. -1 times x is minus x. And then -1 times -1 is +1. So my equation is y equals x squared minus 2x plus 1. And that is going to be my equation. Once again, I can run that across to my graph, and I can graph it, and I can begin looking at the information here. All right? So let's go ahead and do it. Let's plug it in. Camera, calculator, menu, 3, 1. It gives me this. X squared, right? Minus 2x plus 1. And I hit enter. And by pushing enter, it gives me a graph. All right, so I got something interesting here. When I look really closely here, I see that this does not cross the 0 more than one time. It does reach 0. And as a matter of fact, if I menu 7, 1 to give myself a table, you'll see that it does reach 0 at that 1 right there. I also see this graph opening upwards like that, and I can begin to graph that table here. Okay? I can begin to graph that graph here. The graph is going to end up going a little somewhat like that. I do have a minimum because it only reaches down to 0. The zeros and the vertex in this case happen to be the same. The 1, 0 happens to be the same. Now, with that, what about the second one? There isn't a second 0. The only time it crosses the x-axis is at 1. Last but not least, domain and range. Once again, the x could be all numbers. The range has a boundary at 1, and as long as y is greater than or equal to 1, we're good. Something else about these zeros I don't want you to forget is that you can solve for the zeros when we're looking at these, right? Like, and I'm erasing a spot down here for me to also do a little bit of math real quick. When you have those parentheses like that, what you can do is you can say x minus 1 equals 0. And then by adding 1 on both sides, you're able to say, oh, x equals 1. That x equals 1 is going to be the x value of our x-intercept, which is where the y equals 0 right there, where it crosses that x-axis. That is always going to work. I have one more example that I'm going to give you, and this one's a little bit different just because that -9 is outside the parentheses. Once again, we're going to FOIL what's inside the parentheses. We're going to use the box method on that, so let's go ahead and practice with doing the box method one more time. X minus 2 squared. Once again, x minus 2 becomes x minus 2 and x minus 2. X times x is x squared, -2 times x is -2x, -2x again, and +4. And once again, the things that match are my -2x and my -2x. So when I go to write this, I'm going to end up with x squared minus 4x plus 4, minus 9. 4 minus 9, that can be combined together. 4 take away 9 is minus 5. we do want to be careful about including all of our terms. Why is it the -9? Because of this 4 and that -9. Those get combined together to make a -5. So when I go to graph this right here, I can't do the solve for 0 in there. That's not something I would be able to do. I would actually want to be using my calculator here. Menu, table, and I need to remove that table. And then yes, I can click and delete this graph. Menu 3, 1 is going to give me my x squared. Then I have -4x. Ooh, I put y. Why didn't I put y? It should be x and then -5. I believe that was the equation. Looks good to me. Menu 3, excuse me, not menu 3, 1. Escape when you make a mistake like that. Menu table, so 7, 1. And then I can see my graph here. -8, -9, -8, -5. It just so happened to show me where my vertex was here at 2, -9. So I can go ahead and I can graph that to -9 is all the way down here. And that is going to be where my vertex is at 2, -9. Now let's go find my zeros. Once again, I'm going to look back at my calculator and be looking for zeros in this column, the y column here. And I can see that it does start reaching up towards 0, up on this side here of this table, where it says 5, 0. If I work my way back the other way, -1, 0, those are gonna be my 2 zeros that I'm looking for here. My 5, 0, and my -1, 0, because those are where it crosses my x-axis. 5, 0, -1, 0. Yeah, that's gonna be where it goes up and through the x-axis. This one again is a minimum because it is going to be going through, or it's gonna be working its way up from this -9 point here. My domain doesn't have any restrictions on how far it can go, so it is all real numbers. And the range, where y has to be greater than or equal to -9, literally just says, here's the boundary. I can be -9, but everything else I am has to go above it, okay? That's what you're doing today. I need y'all to do it. This is a big part of the test. You're about to get into factoring, and that is going to be a pain. You are not going to like it. If you can't do this, it gets harder, okay? So please, 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 I need you working on that worksheet.